we are going to go behind the scenes. What does that mean? Well, over the last few years, while I have been doing the Mindset Medicine podcast, I have received questions on social media. I've had questions about different parts of my life, my experiences, and so on. So we're going to change things up a little bit today. We are going to dive in and I'm going to answer some of these questions that have been coming in over the years. And thank you for sending these to me. I'm going to pull up my list here and we're just going to make this casual. So grab a coffee. I'm recording this on a Saturday morning because let's just kick back and I am going to give you some of the experience as maybe it's better to call it the background to what has led me to where I am today and what's been going through my mind, my mindset. I know that I talk a lot about mindset and business and so on, but what was actually going through my mind when all of these different things have happened to me over the years? So this list of questions is some of them are personal, some of them are business related, some of them are AI related, but you know what? Let's just have some fun. Let's dive right in and see if I can answer these questions for you. All right, let's get started. So, first question is, how did your mindset shift after your heart attack? So that's a really good question. I'm going to be transparent and honest with you. After my heart attack, my mindset was terrible. I mean, horrible. I was in shock, first of all. And I think I probably had PTSD because I couldn't sleep and I was on so much medication. They had given me so many different kinds of medication. I think I came home with a bag of like 10 different medication. And because this happened in Europe, and if for those of you that don't know, when I was 33, I had a massive heart attack, and I'm going to go into that story a little bit deeper on some of the social media channels. But I had a massive heart attack, which then led to subsequent heart attacks, which then led to triple bypass surgery. It should have been quadruple bypass because all four arteries were blocked with blood clots, but they decided that they were going to leave the one and just do the triple bypass. A couple of weeks after that, when I was finally discharged and went home and thought everything was going to be fine, I had a stroke. Went back into the hospital. They gave me more medication and upped other medication I was taking to really high doses, which caused all of its own thing. So my mindset was I lived in fear. Basically, that's what it was. Every single day, all that went through my mind was, am I going to have another heart attack? Is this the day that I'm going to die? And it's a horrible way to live because I had two small boys. One of my boys was he had just turned 2, or he was turning 2, and my other boy was 7 years old. And it's hard to be present as a mother when you have been through something so traumatic that you can't take control of your own feelings and emotions. So it was this battle that I was fighting against every single day. It was wake up in the morning. Okay, I'm not going to cry today. I'm not going to be scared today. But the more that I told myself that, then I started developing anxiety attacks and panic attacks. So I had my 3-month, 4-month recovery where I had to basically walk again and try and get upstairs. It's a whole procedure to get back on your feet. But the fear was so great. It basically overcame me. It was like a blanket that I couldn't get out from. So that went on for months. Probably 9 months, I was in that mindset of fear, and really, it was just fear. Like I could barely function because I was so scared of life. And I was supposed to, be able to drive my kids places. I would plot the routes on roads knowing where the closest hospitals were anytime I left the house. That is how, it was how obsessed I was about, well, what if I'm driving and I get sick and something happens to the kids while they're in the car with me? So at month 9, I was watching a show. And here's what's interesting. I was watching Oprah, and we only got Oprah like once a month. I lived in Cyprus, a Mediterranean island, and she had this lady on stage. And it's funny how things happen. Like, I never really watched Oprah when I lived in Cyprus, but there I was, the one channel that happened to have her on once a month. She has this guest on the show, and the guest was going through a lot of traumatic experiences herself. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just watch this. And this guest said to her, you know, I used to feel like I was a victim, like, why me? And I have to admit, that's what I used to say right after my heart attack and the open heart surgery and the stroke. So often I said, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? I'm only 33. I've got 2 small kids. So I watched this show, and then I started thinking to myself, this lady said, well, why me? But then she followed that with, why not me? And I thought that was really interesting because it's very true. What makes us more special than anyone else? Why shouldn't we go through these traumatic experiences? Um, I believe that there are reasons for it. So, although my mindset started off as fear-based, and it was dictated, everything I did was dictated by fear. You do not grow from there. You do not think clearly. My mind was cloudy all the time. I couldn't be a good mother if I'm always scared, because I didn't want to become that mother who put a blanket over their own kids and sheltered them so much because of my own fear. So when I heard this lady say, you're no more special than anyone else, that things that are bad shouldn't happen to you, something went off in my mind and something triggered. And I thought to myself, you know what? She's absolutely right. Why shouldn't I have a heart attack? I know it's unusual. I know that most 33-year-old healthy women don't have them, but I did. Yes, I have scars down my chest and down my leg from where they did the bypass surgery, but other people have scars. So every day I started shifting how I was thinking. And what happened was, I just decided by, I think it was month 10 or 11, okay, that's enough. No more pity party. I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself anymore. I am actually really lucky to be here on this earth. I've been given a second chance at life. What am I doing sitting back feeling sorry for myself? Are you kidding, Katharine? So I started talking to myself almost like a coach would. Okay, it's time to get up. It's time to get back out there. And I had to just come to terms with, if something was going to happen, then it was going to happen to me. And I could not control what I can't control. So I started going out, and I would, take the kids and take them to play areas, and I was fine. So from there, I then said, well, you know what? What have I always wanted to do? I always wanted to open a business from scratch, right from the bottom. It didn't exist in Cyprus. That's what I wanted to do. Create a business that would be new. It would be exciting. It was a challenge for me. It would keep my mind off of my health. And that's what I did. I actually have a question about that came in. So I'm going to read that question because I think it's a really interesting one that leads from this. So my mindset shift after my heart attack was basically a shakeup and a wake-up call that we cannot feel sorry for ourselves when things happen. What we can do is move into action and try and heal but action keeps our mind busy. Instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, it allows us to go forward and create new things. And it was in the creation of a business that started to bring me back to life. And when I coach people, this is what I hope to help them to do, is to move forward with purpose, because having a purpose is what will keep you alive. And I'm going to talk about what that situation was like when I was in the hospital, when I was on the way to the hospital, and my husband was driving me there, and I could feel my body dying. It's a very strange sensation. But when you feel yourself dying, one thing is going to keep you alive, and that is your purpose. And when I was in that car, my purpose was my kids. I was not leaving this earth. I was not leaving my kids at 33 years old. So purpose is what drives everything that I do today and when I coach my clients. Let's go on to this next question. I'm going to come back to purpose a little bit later. The next question that I saw here was, how did you build a personal brand from scratch? And that's a really good question, because I've actually had to build a personal brand a few times. You know, I had to build this brand when I lived in Europe. It was a children's 5,000 square foot indoor playground. Why did I choose that business? Because we tend to choose businesses that we have an interest in. And I had two small children. And because Cyprus is so hot in the summer, like currently right now, it's about 45 degrees there, Celsius. So about 113 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it is that hot outside, you can't bring the kids out to play. I remember when one of my sons was a baby, just the seatbelt grazed his leg and it burned him. That is how hot the car gets. So I wanted to create a solution for people. And isn't that how most entrepreneurial endeavors begin? Is we want to create a solution for someone. So my solution was, what if there was this amazing children's indoor playground, but I wanted to do it North American style? And what does that mean for Europe? I wanted the huge inflatable, right, that the kids could slide down on. I wanted those little tyke cars and little motorbikes that they could do around the floor and have like a little path on the floor. I wanted that ball pit. You know, I grew up going to the ball pit at IKEA, and that's what I wanted to recreate. But all of those resources weren't available there. So I had to source them from Europe, from North America. I had to source all these things, bring them to Cyprus, and start this idea from scratch. So the idea was, what is my purpose? What do I want to create here? So I knew what that was. I wanted to have kids to have an indoor play area that was temperature controlled to be able to play. What could we do here? Well, we could have parties. And what I quickly realized later on in the business is parties were not enough to keep the revenue flowing, which means I had to be open during the day. Well, how do you keep a children's indoor playground open during the day when almost all the kids are at school during the day? And so I decided, having been a teacher, I was going to create a venue for schools to come on an excursion, which could be used as their gymnastics time, their gym time, give them exercise. So we were air conditioned in the summer, we were heated in the winter. There would be never a problem for these kids to have a place to climb up the slide and go on the little cars and play in the balls. So now, where do you start when you're going to build a brand from scratch? I have the two most significant times that I have done this, although I've done it multiple times, but I'll talk about the two biggest ones. The one was in Cyprus with the children's play area. The second one was when I opened my own real estate brokerage, an independent real estate brokerage, no brand affiliation. I created my own brand. So you sit back and you say to yourself, okay, who is my audience? How do I need to attract people to this business? When I was opening the children's playground, colorful colors, bright colors are hugely important when we are dealing with children. We want yellows and oranges and blues. How do I know that? Because I went and I studied it. I studied what attracts children, because if you can attract children, you can attract their parents. And how do I know that? Let's look at the biggest brands in the world. McDonald's. McDonald's has the Happy Meal. The Happy Meal has a toy in it. You know, you don't normally see children, riding around in the car and they're asking for many other different types of burger places. Typically, they're going to ask for a Happy Meal, or at least they used to, because of the toy inside. So I used that foundation and theory. And I said, well, if I can make this sign outside, right? Let's start with what people can see. If that's bright, if it has cartoon characters on it, if you can see the slide from the window, all of these things will attract just the people on the outside, as well as the advertising that I would start doing. After that, I had to start with promotions, because this was a new place. People didn't really know what a birthday party would look like in there, because if it's never existed, you now have to explain what it is. So I would tell people to come in and experience it. Let your kids come and play in here. When the parents saw how much fun the kids were having, then I would get one party and then the next party. And then it was, tell a friend. Then I went to all the schools and I said, I'm having a discount for you to come and bring your kids to play, and I'll give you juice and I'll give them a snack, right? As part of and then this is what happened. And then when the kids would leave, I would put a flyer in each of their backpacks. So then that flyer went home with a coupon for them to bring other kids. I didn't have the beauty of the internet when I started doing that. So I had to be very, very creative. However, one of the most important aspects of creating a brand from scratch is to have a system in place. So I had to know who I was targeting. I had to have a very clear idea of what these parties would include, and all of that foundation had to be ready. My pricing had to be in order. My value, what am I offering a birthday party? And did I have different tiers? I did. I had different affordability tiers. And in Europe, those of you who have been to Europe probably know that almost everything revolves around food. So there was no way that I could have parties without having a kitchen and catering to these parties. And so that's where the different tiered birthdays would come in, depending on the type of food you were ordering. Was it just snacks, or was it going to be a full buffet? Because people tended to bring in a lot of their relatives. So that then moved on. Now, the brokerage was slightly different because it's a real estate brokerage. So how do you rise from nothing and become a real estate brokerage? What you do is you have to make the name signify something. The name has to be synonymous with, what is it? Is it good service? Is it a cheaper commission? Is it tailored service, tailored to your needs? What is it that's going to help you stand out amongst the crowd? There's an excellent book called Blue Ocean. And when you are creating a blue ocean strategy, you are not trying to blend in. You are trying to differentiate yourself. That is what makes you float in the blue ocean among so many different things. So when I made my real estate brokerage, for us, it was going to be about first-class service. And the agents that were hired at my brokerage were all full-time, because I wanted them to carry on the idea that it was full service. It was going to be first-class service. They were going to be highly educated. What I noticed in the real estate industry when I was opening this business was so many agents weren't educated enough on the market, on the contracts, on the type of clauses that would keep someone safe and keep their investment protected. That was hugely important to me, especially as someone who had been a professor in university. I really value and I value education, and I value knowledge. I value experience. So I knew that if I could put all of that together under one roof, that in itself was a value proposition for people. So then the next question is, well, how do you show that to people? So the way that I was able to show that to people was through videos. And I started doing video marketing before most real estate agents were doing video marketing. So I had already got my feet wet. But the fastest way to appeal to people is through video. And of course, here I am, doing a podcast, and the video is on YouTube, and the videos in shorts and on TikTok and on Instagram Reels. But what video does is that it shows people who you are, and they get to know you, like you, and trust you before they even meet you. They get to experience you before they actually experience you in person. And the beauty of that is that it does the hard work for you ahead of time. So if you are in a service business, for example, and you're trying to establish a brand, you better get yourself on video really quickly, because that is how people will determine if you are the right person for them. And that's what happened. Every month I did real estate.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mindset Medicine. Remember, every step you take toward building a resilient mindset and creating harmony in your life will get you closer to your dreams and that transformation that you've been looking for.
I knew the recipe,
if today's episode hit home for you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is our fuel. Spread the love. Share this podcast with friends and family. Tag me on Instagram at Katharine Loucaidou Coaching. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, head over to KatharineLoucaidouCoaching.com. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep living your very best life with harmony and purpose. And until next time, my friends, live boldly with purpose.
And our name will be synonymous with you educating the people. And that's what happened. And that office became very successful as well. So when you are establishing a brand, know what you stand for. Remember, we go back to that word purpose. What is your purpose? Why are you doing it? What do you want your brand to be synonymous with? I know that a lot of people want to run and do the website and the colors and the branding. The thing is that the brand is you. And I knew that when I started my brokerage, that I already had a very good reputation in the area that I was. So now I wanted to extend that so that the agents in the brokerage would have the same thing. Do you know that I started the brand from scratch, no brand affiliation whatsoever? Within the area that I am in, there were another 5 national brands that have been around since the 1960s. I won best brokerage 4 out of the 5 years that I was there. And the 1 year that I didn't come first, I came second. So when you go all in on your brand and you believe in what you are doing, nothing will stop you from moving up to the different levels of where you want to reach. So that was a really good question. Thank you very much for that. Why don't we do one more? Actually, we'll do a couple more. What are the most effective strategies you have found for managing stress and anxiety? Really good question, because I have been in business for 30 years. I have been a teacher. I have been a coach. I speak on stages. The problem with stress and anxiety is that it clouds your mind. You don't think clearly when you are stressed. So why don't we go and dive a little bit into what stress is? I've had to learn the hard way that stress and anxiety are you future pacing into the future for things that have not happened yet and likely will not happen. So there is this interesting percentage chart of stress and anxiety and the chances of something bad happening. We go around most of our life thinking that 80% of the things that we worry about are going to happen. Interestingly enough, only 20% of those actually have a chance of happening. And of that 20%, when you look through it, about 15% is controllable and only about 2% is out of our control of everything that we are up against in life. So if we are only unable to control 2% of everything that happens every day, why do we lose so much sleep? Why are we always so stressed? Why do we have so much anxiety? I'll tell you why. Because we're imagining what could happen if, and then we have these scenarios that we create in our minds. When I stopped doing that, when I stopped creating these scenarios where bad things were going to happen, when I say bad, unfortunate, with my health. So I started to lead a much happier life. And as you see me today, so much has happened in 17 years. And that's what I'm going to be talking about, because I want you to understand that transformation is possible. I'm here at my second chance at life. And so I have created a system in how do you do that? How do you overcome defying death? Multiple times, because I had a massive heart attack, then 5 subsequent heart attacks. Then I had a stroke. And then a few years later, I got a vaccine and I was paralyzed. And then just last year, I had skin cancer. How does a person just keep coming back from all of those things and coming back with optimal health and resilience? And each of those represents something else in my system of how we do this. How do we go from the anxiety, the panic, the burnout, the stress, the anxiety, to happiness, not feeling a lot of stress anymore, haven't had a panic attack in probably 16 years. I don't take medication because my blood tests, my blood pressure, my heart rate are perfect. So how did I manage to do all that? That is what I'm going to be talking about over the next few months, because I think it's really important that other people have the opportunity to be able to do this. So when we talk about the most effective strategies I have found for managing stress and anxiety, number one, it is to stop creating narratives in your mind about what you think will happen in the future, what you think may happen tomorrow, what you think may happen a week from now, or a month from now. You don't actually know. So when you stop creating these scenarios, that's when the stress starts to ease off of you. You are creating it. And the way that you don't create it, first of all, is you look at every day as it is. What can I control today? What is within my control right now? If we are talking about your health, do you know what's in your control? What's in your control is the exercise that you get every day, the amount of water that you drink every day, and the food that you are ingesting. The way that I was able to turn my health around completely and reverse my heart disease was through food, water, exercise, and mindset. And I'll break that down for you as we spend time together. This is a very important strategy, is to understand that it is likely you who is creating more of your stress and anxiety than what is happening around you and your environment. But that is the number 2 that I will go to now. Your environment, the people you hang around with. There are people in our lives who may create more stress and anxiety for us than necessary. So the question is, how do you deal with those people? Do you ignore them and get them out of your lives? What if that happens to be a spouse or a relative? What if you have to see these people? What if you have to live with these people? Well, I'll tell you what I've learned over the years. Communication is huge. And If you are in an environment where people aren't supporting you, they're not encouraging, they're very negative, they're negative about everything around, you have, first of all, the option to communicate. This is really difficult for me. Your negativity affects me. If that doesn't help, then what you do is you create your environment. And I have done that multiple times over the years. When I was living in Europe, there were many people who I was surrounded by who were negative. And the way that I was able to counteract that was to create a world of things that made me happy and my children happy. Sometimes there are situations that you cannot just remove yourself from. You have life that you've created. So what you need to do is you need to find what makes you happy. Is it small things like going for a walk? What's your purpose? Maybe you want to take up art or more exercise or cooking. When you do that, things begin to shift, because so many people in our world are hoping that someone is going to save them. They're hoping that somebody's going to ride in on their white horse and they're going to save us. Or they're hoping that someone is going to make us happy. But that's not the case. And after everything that I've been through, I have realized that my anxiety and my stress are caused by me. I create those scenarios. I put myself into the environments of the people who are negative around me. And it is up to me to change that environment. And when I say change, sometimes it means a conversation saying, listen, you're really negative. How about we start trying to fix that? And when I say fix, I mean shift their mindset. So much is in our control that if you just stepped back and said to yourself, you know what? It's true. I do cause a lot of my stress because of the way that I'm thinking about things, because of the way that I'm seeing the world. They say that a lot of our disappointment in life comes because of these expectations that we have of things and of people. What would happen if you no longer expected things of people? What would happen if you no longer had the expectation that things should happen? You should get a raise. You should live in a better house. You should be living in a better life. If you got rid of that type of thinking and you just said, how can I start to make steps ahead that will move me in that direction? When I have wanted to live in a nicer home, I sat back and asked myself, how can I do this? What do I need to do? What steps do I need to put into action to live in a beautiful home? I wanted to visit countries around the world. How do you do that if you don't have any money? You have to sit down and say, what do I need to do to start creating the steps in front of me to be able to start visiting those countries? My entire last 30 years has been asking myself these questions. When I needed to bounce back from open heart surgery, I had to ask myself, how can I stop feeling miserable? How do I get off this medication? How do I make my heart better? Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Shift the words you say to yourself and ask yourself, how can I make this happen? Because when you ask yourself, your mind starts to ignite. It's like this little light bulb goes off. And when you ask yourself the right questions, you will start automatically looking for those answers. That's really how this works. That is how mindset works. But we need to learn the words to start triggering the different effects that will happen in our life. So instead of the why me, it's how. Instead of I could never do that, start saying, what if? What if this happened? What if I were to create this business? And fear. Remove fear from your life. And you're going to say, well, how do I do that? Here is how you remove fear from your life. One, you start facing it. Whatever you fear, face it. After all of my heart surgery and everything else that happened, I was afraid to get on a plane. What if I have a heart attack in midair? What if my heart shuts down because of the air pressure? So what did I do? I got on a 9.5-hour flight to go from Cyprus back to Canada. I was scared the entire flight, but guess what happened? Guess what happened when I landed in Toronto and my kids were fine and I was fine? I just surpassed that fear. You have a fear of opening your own business? Go open your own business. Start small. Open an online business. Prove to yourself that your fear is in your mind. Every time you overcome that thing you think you're so afraid of, you are proving to yourself that it was a narrative that you were telling yourself. It was a story. I always say that at the end of my life, the one thing I am going to be really proud of is that someone will say about me, she stopped believing the stories she was telling herself. Because we create these scenarios, we create these stories, whether it's based on our past experiences, whether it's based on trauma, whether it's based on things that happened from childhood. We create stories in our minds that dictate how we go through life. But the problem is that we remain very narrow-minded and we remain feeling like a victim. We remain feeling like we don't have any options ahead of us. We think that we're stuck. When we get burnt out from a business, we feel like we can't move. We can't move forward. We're scared. That is when you find your new purpose and you face that fear and you go and you head right toward it. Because the moment you face it and you overcome it, you are now in this beautiful territory of opportunity. And life just leveled up to the next level for you. Imagine you are in a video game of life. If you always just stay at the first level, you may feel fine. You may go by your day, you wake up, go to work, go home. But I know that the way that I am going through life, the way that I coach people to go through life, we're just going to keep leveling up because there is a better way to do life than whatever you're doing right now. You can be happier than you are right now. You can feel more fulfilled than you do right now. I know because I've been at the worst part of life, which is on your deathbed, and where I feel like I am now is in one of the best places of my life. But guess what I know? I know that there are still more levels to go. Optimizing health even more. Optimizing a relationship even more. Having our children even happier than they are. Our work. If you're not happy with what you're doing, you have the opportunity to create something from nothing, because that is the beauty of the internet today and AI, which I haven't even gotten to AI yet today. So this is what I want you to remember today. It is up to you. Don't look for the person to come riding in on their horse to save you. You've got this. I hope that you have found help from these 3 questions. That I only got through 3 questions today, but you know what? If you liked this episode, if you like this more casual way of doing things, put a note in the comments if you're watching a video. Put a note in a podcast platform or on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. Follow me. Just let me know. Whether you're like, you know what, Katharine, I think I kind of like this more relaxed vibe. Let me know. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to come back with some more Answer the Questions next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mindset Medicine. Remember, every step you take toward building a resilient mindset and creating harmony in your life will get you closer to your dreams and that transformation that you've been looking for. If today's episode hit home for you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is our fuel. Spread the love. Share this podcast with friends and family. Tag me on Instagram at Katharine Loucaidou Coaching. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, head over to KatharineLoucaidouCoaching.com. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep living your very best life with harmony and purpose. And until next time, my friends, live boldly with purpose.